Welcome back to the Paranorm Girl podcast. I am your host, Kristen. Tonight's guest is a bit of a Renaissance man. I would call him that. He is certainly involved in a ton of things, and he's also very good at that ton of things. This was a lot of fun to dig into this guest and see just how much he does. So cannot wait to talk to him. He is a musician. He's an author. He's a voice actor, a paranormal podcaster, paranormal investigator, producer. He'll have to add if I'm missing anything. He has experienced the strange, and he is an experienced storyteller. And I think he's going to have a few stories for us to share tonight. Really looking forward to it. Phil Rossi is the guest tonight. He is the host of Don't Turn Around, an awesome podcast. We will talk more about that once I bring him on. Don't Turn Around, right? Like, that's the coolest title for a show. That is the coolest. He hit gold on that. I actually went to post this live announcement on my Patreon, and one of my patrons automatically posted 3 words I never want to hear. And I agree. I agree. If I am ever in a spooky situation, with anybody watching this, don't say that to me. Please don't, because I'm going to start running. And, I don't need to outrun whatever's behind me. I just need to outrun you. So, just don't do it. I'm helping you here. I'm saving your life. Let's see. We are going to keep the intro going. Wait for a few people to roll in. I do have some announcements, but I do want to get right into Phil. So I'm going to save those announcements until the end of the show. So if you don't mind, just hang out for a couple of minutes there at the end, because I got some cool stuff to share with you guys. You're going to love it. But with that said, without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our guest and get him on and get this chat started. My guest is an award-nominated writer, podcaster, and musician with a deep-rooted passion for storytelling, especially the kind that lingers in your mind long after the lights are out. His debut novel, Crescent, became an Amazon bestseller in 2007, publicly setting the stage for a craft defined by haunting imagery, immersive narratives, and an undercurrent of slow-building dread. A veteran of the podcasting world, he now hosts Don't Turn Around, a show that dives into the paranormal, the unexplained, and the often profound personal impact that these events have on our lives. When he's not behind the mic, he's in the field with Old Spirits Investigations, exploring shadowed corners of places like historic mansions, echoing theaters, forgotten churches, battleships, yes, battleships, and museums steeped in secrets. Please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Phil Rossi.
Hey.
Hi.
Thank you for that lovely intro. That sounds it all sounds exhausting.
Dude, okay. Yeah, I was getting exhausted looking at all this stuff. Phil, you're kind of like a Russian doll a little bit, getting into all of the stuff you do.
Yeah,
and it's like every lid I took off, there was, oh my God, there's more. So we're gonna do our best tonight. Oh, hey Heidi. We got some few folks saying hello. Hey Heidi, welcome to the show. D-Booz, you're the man. Solid, dude. All right. Yes. So with that said, I feel like I didn't get to the bottom of you. I've got an idea of a couple of things. We are going to talk about Don't Turn Around the show. We're going to talk about your paranormal investigating and whatever else occurs to me to ask you. But for this one, I really just wanted to start with a story, you telling us a story. And I think the best place to start with that is maybe to just ask you about early experiences or those first strange things and kind of those influences on your upbringing.
Absolutely. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was very young. I don't know if it was whether the experiences I had that made me interested or if it was the media following those experiences. It all kind of happened concurrently a little bit, but I remember I grew up in a house that my grandfather actually built. It was the same house that my mother grew up in. And when I was young, there were always strange sounds in the house. I could hear walking around down our long hallway. Things would fall off my shelves when I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep. Things that I couldn't explain. And anytime I brought that up to my parents, well, they say, either it was the pipes or I was dreaming, go get a glass of water, go back to bed.
Yeah.
So, I think I played those early experiences off as the mundane, as having explanations. At least part of me did. Maybe the logical side of my brain did, but the more emotional dreamer side of my brain, because I was always been a daydreamer, will always be a daydreamer, like to believe in the magic of the moment. And as I got a little bit older, I just gravitated toward the spooky. I was always seeking out that corner of the library where they kept all the books about ghosts and UFOs and the Loch Ness monster, and I would get them by the armload and check them out and just pore over them for hours, much like Mulder, wanting very much to believe. I just found it all so magical and all compelling, and that stuck with me. I got into horror at an early age, even though it scared the crap out of me and kept me up at night. I found that experience to be thrilling and magical in its own way. And it wasn't until I was in high school when I actually started having more profound experiences. There is one experience in particular that comes to mind when I was in high school. There are actually two experiences when I was in high school. One of them was on a field trip that was part of this class that I took that was called Call of the Wild. And the premise of the class was this intersection of nature and literature, and how nature and just the power of nature influences certain authors like Jack London, for example.
Mhm.
This is the narrative in a way that's very kind of organic, and nature itself becomes the character in the story. And so the class culminates in a trip to a location called Dudleytown that some of your listeners may or may not be familiar with. Dudleytown is supposed to be one of the most haunted locations in the country. It's a small, abandoned village in upstate Connecticut. It has some renown thanks to the Warrens, who were going to take a trip out there with a group of people that paid a lot of money to go out there. And the moment they set foot in the town, Lorraine Warren said the energy is too powerful here, and refunded everyone their money. There are stories of
Oh.
lights and disembodied voices, creatures in the woods, stories of insanity and suicide and murder, all taking place in this one isolated area of upstate Connecticut. And so, as a high
Mhm.
school class, we got to go up there and camp out uh, in Dudleytown. But in fact, we didn't actually camp right in Dudleytown. The reason why, or at least the rumors around the reason why, what our teacher told us, was that too many strange things were happening to the class, and there was one final time that they camped out there where they had doused the campfires for the night, like down like to like wet coals, and minutes later those fires just sprung back to life. And I think for my teacher, he said that was it. That was the last
Oh.
time that they camped out there. And so I had the opportunity to go out there and camp out, and I'll never forget when we went. So we did a daytime tour, just kind of walking around the town, which is mostly just foundations, but it's very quiet there. You don't hear birds chirping, insects, nothing, which is strange because when we went up there, it was spring, and in the surrounding areas, you heard the insects chirping and the peepers singing their songs, those little toads. But once we got into the town, it was just eerily silent. And so we did a daytime tour. We saw the different foundations and the remains of buildings. Our teacher gave us some of the history of the town. We came back to our campsite, had some dinner, and then went back at nightfall. And so as we're walking back through the woods, it's getting darker now. It's almost nighttime. We see these headlights up not too far from where we are. And the strange thing about seeing headlights in these woods is that there's no roads. There's no even a path that a car could drive down. It's dense woods. So it was just very, very out of place. And I remember just getting really weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. And as we kind of approach, we see this car kind of sitting in a little bit of a clearing off the path. It's an old, maybe a 1970s, like big sedan, greenish color with those big kind of metal bumpers, they're just big, solid built 1970s cars. And there's a man standing
Yeah.
outside the car, just standing there, and he's got sort of a greenish army fatigue jacket, longish hair, beard, and then under that he has this buffalo plaid flannel shirt. And he wasn't really moving much and kind of expressionless. And my professor, he went up and he spoke to the guy. They chatted a little bit, and then we walked off and left the car behind. And I turned around at one point, and the headlights were gone. And it was later that, thanks to a podcast called Strange Familiars, that I
Mhm.
became acquainted with the concept of flannel man. And I'm not sure if you're
No, what?
check out the Strange Familiars podcast. Flannel man is this just mysterious entity, right? That
Okay.
shows up in different places and different times, and all of the encounters are very similar, sort of mysterious vibe. And when I hadn't even thought of that particular event of encountering this strange man in the woods with this car that had no business being up there until I had been a guest on the show, and that the memory just boom popped right back into my head, and it was quite an astounding thing. So we move on from there. We march deeper into the woods, and we get into the town proper, like right into sort of the entrance of the town. And we're standing there. It's almost full dark now, and as we're standing there, this pocket of cold air just descends on our group, like many degrees cooler than it had been. It was just like a cloud of coldness just fell down on us, and it was everyone commented on it because it was just so abrupt. It had been a warm, like beautiful spring evening. I was actually a little too warm. I had worn a sweatshirt. I had wished I hadn't worn that sweatshirt. I remember thinking as we're marching through the woods that I'm starting to sweat, and I don't want the girls in my class to think that I'm some sweaty guy. And so when it got cold, it was noticeable. It was very noticeable. So we get into the town, and what my professor does, or my teacher does, is he will take either individuals or small groups, and he will leave us in the foundations of the different buildings there to see if we have any experiences. And so I was left with two of my friends, and we're sitting there, and I hear the teacher and the rest of the group kind of they're fading off into the distance. And I just remember after he had headed off, it got very still. Like if you've ever been on an investigation or in a haunted space, this just sort of stillness where it's like the
Mhm.
air is not moving. It's just like almost like someone has hit the pause button on reality.
Yep.
And then moments later started hearing sounds like walking around in the brush that didn't exactly sound like footfalls. The sounds of kind of animals kind of meandering through the brush, but this was more of a deliberate kind of sound. Heard twigs snapping. One point thought I heard a couple voices, thought it was my professor. But at this point, and I'll be perfectly honest, because the paranormal still scared me at this time in my life, my eyes were squeezed shut tight because I did not want to see anything that I could not unsee.
Mhm.
But then at one point, I heard a door, like a screen door, creak open and slam shut. Now, what's strange about that is there are no doors in
Right.
Dudleytown, and the nearest house is miles and miles and miles away. We were in the middle of the woods. So to hear a door slam shut out of nowhere was just, again, inexplicable. And so we sat there in pure terror for what felt like forever. I think it was only about 10 minutes. And then my professor came and he collected our group, and we went back and tried to sleep the rest of the night. And then there were that remained uneventful after that. But he did tell us that, you're not to take anything from the town, not even a single stone or rock, because bad things were said to happen to people that took things out of Dudleytown.
Mhm.
And well, someone took something from my class.
Oh, yeah.
We all knew she took something. We told her, "Don't take it. This is not a good idea." But I think it was just a rock or something that she had taken from like one of the stone walls. And we get back to town, and that next week, she's not at school, and we came to find out like she had been in a car accident and wrecked her car, but she was fine. But then the next day, she just randomly broke her leg. And
Oh,
so, yeah. And so, with the help of a friend, she got back up. She got back up there and she left that rock in the woods. And then nothing else seemed to really happen. Could have been a
mhm.
coincidence, but it was again, yeah, our teenage minds were thinking, oh my gosh, it's absolutely the curse of Dudley Town. But it was a powerful experience, and it was one that was extremely formative in terms of me wanting to get out there and experience it. I didn't think I
Mhm.
would eventually become an investigator, but there were, as teenagers, we would go out to the cemeteries or abandoned places just to see if we could experience things or investigate the local urban legends and see if anything would happen. So that's something that has stuck with me. It's a story that is still very close to my heart. I would love to go back there someday, but they don't allow people to camp up there in the woods anymore. It's and there's various there's rumors that because it's so haunted that they won't let people up there.
Right.
I think it has more to do with they don't want people like vandalizing the woods, leaving trash out there, etc. They want to keep things kind of calm, peaceful, and maintain the natural environment. But
Sure.
Dudley Town, it's quite a spot.
Oh, that's awesome. I have not heard of Dudleytown or, the Flannel Man, and I
Yeah,
had no idea this area was like this, and
yeah.
just so I mean, there's something going on. Do you think, like, some of that a lot of that stuff, like the screen door, that was an
Yeah.
interesting feature, like,
Mhm.
do you think a lot of what's going on is residual and it's, like, bleeding over from times past?
Yeah, I think there's a combination. I think there's something up there in the woods. Definitely
Mhm.
felt a very powerful presence of something there. Um, but I also think that there are, echoes of the past, maybe just residual, or it could be something more of a time slip happening. There's definitely different things happening there. It's not just one thing. I think it's a sum of different things that are happening.
Sure, sure. Okay, so at this point in your life, like you were familiar with the paranormal, you were a believer in it.
Mhm.
But you said you were scared. Has that evolved since up to current day? Like, do you still share some of those early beliefs that you had, or have you like evolved out of that through your experiences?
I think I've evolved out of that fear through my
Hmm.
experiences. I think I've become more self-aware in that
Hmm.
time. As certainly one aspect of it is self-awareness and is recognizing fear as an emotion, right? And like, be it happiness or sadness, anxiety, fear is another emotion, and there's components of it that are from stimuli in the environment and what we're experiencing. But then there's also components of our other emotions and life experiences that are feeding into that fear. Media is a perfect example. Every scary movie we've ever seen, every scary book we've ever seen will play into that fear when you're on an investigation or you're walking in the woods in the middle of the night. But
Hmm.
I think it's being able to understand that fear. I still feel it from time to time, but it's become more of a thing that I'm able to sit with and then have space with as well. But then also on the other side of it, going out, seeking these things out actively, investigating and having experiences through the lens of an investigator
Yeah.
has really replaced that fear with excitement and exhilaration, and most of all, curiosity.
Absolutely. I've found that to be the case too. Like the more time you spend on something, the more verse that you get with that something.
Yeah,
Just the more that you know about it. Like, yeah, the fear naturally starts to melt away because you see
yeah,
a
yeah,
reality about it that you just
yeah,
couldn't before.
yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. There are moments though when that lizard brain fear does
sure. Yeah.
does kick in, and I think that's a time to listen. We've had times on investigations where that's kicked in, and we know that it's time to wrap things up or
Mhm.
switch out spots for sure.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, those foundational stories certainly do pave the way, at least in my mind, thinking about your trajectory up to current day,
Yeah.
doing things like investigating, starting the podcast. Don't turn
Yeah.
around. Now, I know you were podcasting prior to this, but let me
Yeah.
ask. Let me ask. When did you actually start, and what were those shows that you were doing?
So I started podcasting in 2005. It was a yeah, I've been doing it for some time. Uh,
Wow,
it was
yeah.
a podcast about my experience as a writer,
Okay.
as an amateur writer wanting to do more with my writing, and it was just really just a podcast journal of what it was like to just be a young writer trying to figure out how to write, trying to figure out how to get my stories out there. And then that evolved into me. Through that, I started podcasting some short stories. And then from there, I went on to start podcasting my novels. And so that's essentially what I did for many years was podcasting my fiction
Okay.
and then podcasting behind the scenes stuff again, continuing that concept of here's what my experience is as a podcaster, here's what my experience is as a writer, and then here are my stories and here are my books, which is how my book Crescent ended up
Mm,
getting picked up by a small publisher, ended up doing very well on Amazon, and led to some subsequent books from there. And I was going pretty strong until about 2010 or 2011, and then life happened as life often does, and so I had to take a step back, and I wasn't podcasting my stories as much. It went from weekly, I think, to bi-weekly, and then to once a month. But then at the same time, I was getting active in participating in audio dramas and doing some other projects and narrating for other podcasts. So I've been going consistently since I started, just in different shapes and forms. But Don't Turn Around didn't become a concept until about 2019. Around that time, I had started listening to a lot more paranormal programming. I knew that I wanted to kind of re-engage the paranormal. It had been a peripheral thing for many years where I wasn't really actively seeking it out. I was enjoying the paranormal media on television, but I wanted to get a little bit closer to it. And so I started listening to shows like Strange Familiars and Astonishing Legends, Into the Fray. What else? Euphemet, another great show. And it wasn't long after I was listening to some of these shows that I said, why don't I try my hand at a paranormal podcast? And I said that around 2019. And I think it was right before the pandemic where I got the got the inspiration to do it, and haven't really looked back since.
yeah, yeah. Would you just describe in your own I said a little bit about it before, but
Yeah.
just in your own words, tell my audience what Don't Turn Around is and what it's
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think to sum it up as simply as possible, Don't Turn Around. It's a space for stories, right? A space for just these extraordinary things that happen to everyday people, right? From your next door neighbor to paranormal investigators and psychic mediums and everything in between. But it's not just about the spooky stories. It's about how these stories, how these happenings impact our human experience, how they how they change our journey, how they expand our own perception, and what those moments are like after, after something's happened, or what it's like growing up with a gift and trying to reconcile being different, right? It's a podcast about people and about human lives through the lens of the paranormal.
Okay, okay. That's yeah, the guest portion of this is just outrageously cool. You have such great guests on. That was like the
Yeah,
first takeaway that I had. I just love listening. There are certain hosts who just naturally they have like this receiving energy and people want to just share things with them and feel safe sharing things with them, and that's kind of what I'm taking away from your show.
thank
People are
you.
just happy to share these stories that are sometimes hard to tell
Yeah,
other people, you know?
yeah. We've talked about some hard
Mhm.
stuff. I mean, we've talked about trauma, and trauma's never an easy subject for anyone that's experienced trauma to talk about, but also it can be amazingly, transformative and healing to share that trauma. And then, I mean, most of us have experienced some kind of trauma in our lives,
Mhm.
and so I like about what I like a lot about the show is being able to share these stories and relatable experiences so people can see that I might feel alone, but I'm not alone.
Right.
And that
Mhm.
there is light out there that I can use as a guidepost.
Yeah, yeah. Well, can I just say, your interview with Dave Schrader,
Yes. Oh, I love Dave. Love him.
phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal interview. I listened to it
Thank you.
twice. It's
Oh
so
wow.
good.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Well, he had I mean, you both had great things to say, but, like, when you hear sometimes you need to hear things said in a certain way, and then you're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
that makes sense." So I really appreciated a couple of things that he said that really apply to life right now. Yeah, just absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you so
So,
much. Thank you.
kudos. How
Thank
did
you
you
so
meet
much.
him? Can I ask you, podcaster
So
to podcaster?
I was a huge fan of the Holzer Files,
Okay.
and then of course the other
Mhm,
work that he has done since then. I just
mhm.
kind of just developed a guy crush for Dave. I just thought he was just so sincere and just such a great guy that it was a Hail Mary. I said, "Let me see if I can get Dave on the show. I would love to chat with him. I mean, I would love to chat with him off the air." And so I just shot him a
Mhm.
message and said, "Hey, here's what I do, and here's what I really appreciate about you, and why I think you'd be a great fit for the show." And he was open and willing to come on, and it was a huge honor to be able to talk to him.
Oh, man. Well, you did so well.
Thank
So
you so much.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about well, I had one more question just in
Mhm.
regards like, it's kind of a podcastery question. Uh,
Yeah.
I think I'm my show is younger than yours, like, I'm a couple of years younger. I wasn't until 2021.
Okay.
But
Okay.
just over the years, I've seen how, my skepticism and belief and that line that I draw between the 2 has
Yeah.
kind of shifted just
Yeah.
being this
Okay.
close to the material, and I
Yeah.
was just curious, where has it shifted for you? Where do you typically draw that line when you're talking with these guests, when you're covering these new topics?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that I've actively examined that, right?
Oh,
But I'm happy to do it right now.
please.
You know, I think when I've got a guest on and they're sharing in that moment, I'm just fully open to their stories. I think
Mhm,
in the moment, definitely, I am leaning on the side of the believer, especially with my guests. They believe, right? They very much believe the stories that they're sharing, and so I openly join them in that belief. And then
mhm.
I think sometimes you take a step back, and I think just not even with the stories that I hear, but just in general and experiencing the paranormal, I think it's a shifting target. It's a moving target. And I think there's some days where I'm very just open to believing and it's there. And then for whatever reason, there's days where I really question it. It could be maybe I'm having a bad day or there's something stressful going on in life and I'm questioning, what am I what am I doing with all this? What is there really something going on here? And so I think it's this sort of push and pull, right,
Yeah.
between hearing these great stories and having these experiences and then the greater reality that unfortunately we're all stuck in of some very real, very tangible life things that compete with the magic.
Mhm. Yeah, it does not feel magic on this side at all.
Yeah.
It's
Yes. Yes.
very real world.
Yes.
Uh,
Very real world.
that was so well said, and I
Thank
love that
you.
descriptor, moving target.
Yeah.
That's describes it
Yeah.
perfectly.
And I think that's okay. I think that's the nature
Mhm.
of it. It is a moving target. I mean, we're all moving targets. Us as individuals and our identity and these aspects of self are in constant flux and shift. It's not a static system, and so I
Mhm.
think that's where self-awareness comes in. And I
Yeah.
think that's where being able to pause and find space to be able to be present in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is what ultimately keeps me centered and always shifts me back to where I want to be, even if it's not where I thought I want it to be.
True. You're right where you need to be at all times,
Yes.
even if you
Yeah.
don't know know
Yeah.
it.
Yes. 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 Exactly.
Oh, all so well said, dude. I need
Thank
you
you
to
so much.
write for me. Can you just write the script
Yeah.
of my life? Like,
Yeah. You got it. I will. I'll
yeah.
get to work on that.
Um,
I'm
the
not
only
sure
other
you want a horror author to do that for you.
I'll take the help.
Mhm.
The only other thing I wanted to ask you about the show before we move on, and this might be
Yeah.
where if you have an announcement to make, you can do so. You also recently added a new segment on the show called
Mhm.
"It Came from the Web."
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So, I'm always Googling and digging around the internet looking
Mhm.
for interesting, spooky happenings. I get all the trending stuff, but I'm more interested in those posts that aren't tend to not be trending or in the darker corners, things that just strike my fancy. And I decided to turn that into a live show, bi-weekly live show that is sort of a companion to Don't Turn Around, where I share the things that I find on the internet and talk to them. And it is definitely again through the Mulder side of the lens because I want to inject that magic because there's so much garbage on the internet. Let's face it. There's so many hoaxes, a lot of fake stuff, and I'm sure 90% of the stuff that I'm sharing is fake, right? But maybe not.
Mhm.
But maybe not. And so the sort of the underlying theme of It Came from the Web is the maybe not. Maybe this is real. And it's just been a ton of fun. I mean, I'm getting into the groove now. At first, with doing anything new, I felt very awkward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The first few ones, I was like staring at the screen and not like talking to the camera, and it was very, I'm sure, uncomfortable for everyone involved. But now it's feeling a little more natural. So I'm excited to see where it goes now that I'm getting
Oh,
more of a groove with it.
that's awesome. And are you're when's your upcoming live?
So I'm actually doing an upcoming live tonight after this recording
Awesome.
tonight at 9:30 Eastern. I'll be jumping in and sharing some of the fun things that I've
Oh,
found.
wonderful. Well, I may have to head over there myself. But yes, listeners, if you enjoy this, need more of Phil in your life, immediately after the show, it's a double feature, you
A double
guys.
feature.
That's
Who
what
doesn't
we're
love a
doing.
double feature?
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. I miss double
Oh
features.
my gosh.
Man.
A funny story, unrelated to the paranormal, double feature experience 5 years ago. Went to see Alien and Aliens as a double feature, but it was
Oh.
at one of those Alamo Cinema draft houses
Mhm.
where I don't think the chairs are necessarily meant for a double feature. And man, I was feeling it by the end there. I was questioning the in theater double feature after that experience.
Oh, man. Well, you know what? For your birthday, I'll send you like a butt pillow so that you don't have
Okay.
to give up the double feature life.
Yes. Okay. I
We
appreciate
don't
that.
yeah,
Yes.
we don't want
Yes.
that. Well, awesome. Thank you for taking the time to
Of
just go through the
course.
show. I love the
Of
nitty-gritty
course.
details always. I will always ask for those. But we are partway through the show, and I do definitely wanna get you out on time for your live,
I
but
appreciate it.
let's get into the investigation side of what
Yes.
you do.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, first question out the gate. Tell us about Old Spirits Investigations, who's involved, what style investigation you guys have. Uh,
Yeah.
how long have you been around?
Yeah, so believe, are celebrating our 4th year doing this as a group.
Wow.
We started again during the pandemic. I had been doing a few episodes of Don't Turn Around and decided that I'd really like to try this. I really want to give this a shot and see if it's for me. And so I have a local battlefield that I was going out to just I think with a spirit box, a K2, and a digital recorder.
Mhm.
And at first, I didn't have any experiences there. But then some weird things started to happen. I was just getting the feels, right? Those vibes, right? The hair standing on end. And this would be in broad daylight that I would be
Mm.
going out there and captured a couple EVPs that were pretty astounding that really caught me off guard. And so I was playing this game Phasmophobia, which is this ghost hunting kind of totally embellished and hilarious
It's
fun
fun.
game. It's a lot of fun. Yes, so you know it. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
playing it with my good buddy T.
Mhm.
And one night I called him up. I said, "Hey, this is fun. I'm having a good time doing this. This is a great way to spend the pandemic." I said, "But yeah, how would you like to try this for real?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I'd like to give this a shot." What he didn't know is I had already booked a location, reserved a room, and had everything set up to go. I just needed him to say yes.
Okay.
And so in I believe it was July of 2021, or was it? Yeah, July of 2021, we headed out to a place called Belgrove Plantation because I had seen it featured on Kindred Spirits. And that April, I had gone with my wife and one of my daughters to do sort of a historical tour of the location and immediately fell in love with it and knew that this was going to be the spot for our first investigation. And we were so green. We had no idea what we were doing, but there was the magic. You felt the magic of just getting into that mindset, getting into that headspace of investigating. And we had some of our gear was going off, but it was just, again, like, while a ton of stuff didn't happen, uh, enough happened. One that was really compelling. I remember trying to fall asleep. I've never seen anyone fall asleep faster than T, who's my partner, who was my founding member.
Mhm.
He can fall asleep like that. I'm not like that. So I'm laying there in bed and I'm hearing footsteps like walking around the bed, just kind of pacing 100%. It was could not have been any other sound. And I just remember keeping my eyes kind of shut at that point because I was exhausted. I was done, didn't need to experience anything. And I just said, "Hey, thank you for showing up, but I just want to go to sleep." And it stopped. But then that
Oh,
morning we woke up to this weird, just banging sound coming. There's an elevator shaft in the room, an old elevator where apparently one of the young kids that lived there used to bounce their ball in, and it sounded very much like a dun, like a ball, boom, bouncing. And that's what actually how we started our next day there. That woke us up in the morning, and we couldn't explain it. And by the time we got our recorders on, it had stopped. But
wow.
it was enough for us to instantly fall in love with investigating. And then since that time, our wives have joined our group too. They were just happy that he and I had found something fun to do, but they didn't want anything to do with it. But then they got more and more curious about it, and so now they are active members of the team and come out with us on these investigations and add a whole different element to the
Mhm.
investigation.
That's the theory. Like, I theorize that based on certain people, like, their own
Hmm.
energy that they're bringing to the group, that's either gonna create or manipulate, whatever energy is gonna happen or not happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the
Mhm.
team and the team dynamic and just the energy of the team is vital,
Yeah.
vital to the investigation. We have, knock on wood, we have not had a single investigation in the 4 years that we've been doing this as a team where nothing's happened. Like, we
Oh,
always have gear
nice.
going off. We always come back
Mhm.
with at least a couple EVPs, personal experiences. We've been very, very, very fortunate.
Wow. I cannot believe both of you started green. Just I mean, it's been a long
Totally
time,
green.
4 years ago, but
Yeah.
totally fresh. Nobody's ever done this before. And to look at you now, I was literally gonna call this out. I made a note to tell you, your guys' YouTube channel, the content that you are putting out, it is so professional. Like, you feel like you're watching a TV show.
Oh, I love that. So I have to give credit to T, who does all of our editing,
I was gonna ask.
and
He needs a raise. Yeah.
he needs a raise. He works his ass off doing it, and
Wow.
he does a remarkable job. And he's really grown too as an editor, and it's really fun to watch the progression, both of us as investigators and as the format of the show evolves, and just as his editing evolves. It's a journey, and what I really love about doing Old Spirits and sharing what we do is that it's an opportunity for people to watch us grow
Yeah.
as we do this. And I
Mhm.
think that is very human, right? Is growth and evolving. and we continue to evolve, and we're always having conversations about, well, maybe we should start doing this, or maybe we should stop doing this, or maybe we're getting too distracted by this, because it's easy to get distracted on an investigation
Mhm.
alone, just on the investigation with equipment and trying to stay in the moment. But then when you're adding the aspect of filming and wanting to get content, it's again easy to get caught up on all of that. So it's a matter of finding that balance, and for T and I, of like keeping each other in check too, and keeping each other in the moment. But
Mhm.
we do well with that. I mean, he and I, our friendship goes back to podcasting. So I initially met him back in the early days of podcasting before I did my first novel, and I found out he was local. And so he said, "Hey, you want to get together for a drink? I have this idea for this book, and I'm not sure if I should turn it into a podcast." And so we got together over a couple beers, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely. This sounds great. You should podcast this." So probably without T, my novel Crescent would never have happened as a podcast, and I would not be sitting here chatting with you today.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you need that person in your corner,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
That's just incredible. Oh my gosh. All right. All right. I got to keep myself on track. I was just thinking like investigation it
Yeah.
by itself is there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And if it's for
Hmm.
you, it's for you. It is the funnest thing in the world,
Yeah,
even on a boring night, but it's a lot just by
it's a lot.
itself to add all that extra, production and
Yeah,
keeping the details straight. It's kudos, seriously.
thank you, thank you.
Okay, so back to the investigation. How about what kind of locations have you been to? Like, what are some memorable locations?
Okay, memorable locations. One of the most memorable locations that we've done uh, goes back to our first year of investigating. We did this location called the TWA Flight 514 crash site. So in 1974, there was a TWA 514, which was coming in to the Washington, D.C. area under bad weather. They were diverted to another airport, and we're right on the Appalachian Mountains out here. They're not too far from where we live, and there's this one mountain, Mount Weather, and at the time there was a disconnect in the language between air traffic controllers and pilots. So there was a miscommunication, and the flight thought that they were cleared to begin their descent, but they were not, in fact, cleared. And so
Okay.
they started descending early, and they crashed right into the side of the mountain. And there were 94 people on that flight, including crew, and everyone died almost, well, I would say instantaneously.
Wow.
Very, very tragic story. And so I had been looking for places to investigate that were local, to kind of cut our teeth in a way that we weren't having to invest a lot of money to rent out places, but we were still getting the practical experience. And this was only 20 minutes from my house. And so we decided, yeah, let's go out there and give this a shot. So we went out there in the daytime, and we figured this, one of our, if not our primary mission, is as storytellers, and to be able to tell the forgotten stories, or the stories of the souls that have passed, right, of the
Mhm.
lives that have passed through these spaces. And so this just seemed an ideal place to do this, because we were both struck that we had never really heard of TWA Flight 514, even though this accident led to vast reforms in air traffic control processes and how language is used, and in revisions and air safety. It was really, really fundamental in changing how air safety is handled today. And
Mhm.
so we just felt like this was something that we had to do. And so we go out there. Well, let me back up. So first, I wanted to kind of scope the area out before we went out there. And so my wife and I decided we would go out there a couple days before we were going to do the investigation with T. And of course, we wanted to go out there during the daytime, but as schedules go, as life goes, sometimes you just cannot get out the door on time. But we
Mhm.
still got out while the sun was up, forgetting the fact that in the mountains it tends to get dark very fast. And so by the time we got up there, it was almost nightfall. And we find like the location is right off the road. So there's a big rock that juts out over the road, which is actually where the nose of the plane stopped. Um, and so we kind of pull over and then we kind of cross the road just to kind of go scope it out. And there's flowers there that people have left to remember the victims. There was like a letter that someone had written that put out there. It just felt very strange. The energy was just very intense, and my wife got very quiet, and I didn't really notice that. I was just trying to film and check things out. And I remember kind of leaning over and trying to read the letter that was there, feeling very disoriented. It was almost as if the letters of the individual words were like shifting around. Like I couldn't, for the life of me, I could not read it. It was so strange. And I turned to her and I noticed she was looking really pale. And I said, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I feel really, really sick." And I said, "All right, well, let's take off." So we left and we decided that, well, why don't we, we'll make sure when we go back out there that we're going back out, that it's early enough in the day that we're not going out there at nighttime because it just seems too intense at night. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm thinking, I would also love to come back at night, but I didn't say I didn't say anything. And so we get out there in the afternoon and trying to find a way like into the woods where like the main crash site is. And so you can get to it by climbing up that rock and marching straight through. And I was not going to wait to try to find another way around. So I had my, what I call my Josh Gates moment. And I just plow through like the branches and the thorns, and I'm getting like cuts and scratches. And I was very proud of myself for doing that. And I thought I had cleared a path for T and my wife, Tina, to come through. But they actually had found a path that went around.
Oh, no.
So I'm here covered in thorns and leaves and spider webs. And there they are, just kind of marching through. So we get some of our gear set up. We didn't have a ton of stuff. I think I had just gotten a REM pod, and T had a Flux 2 from Ghost Stop, which is this response device. It's like a yes-no device, basically, that operates off temperature and proximity. I was very struck by, again, it was very still there. It just had this sort of somber atmosphere, and I don't know how much of that was the vibe and the energy of the location or knowing that what had happened there. What was also really interesting was the older trees that were there. There were some older trees that were just sheared off at the top from where the plane came in. And that was just absolutely astounding to see. And it just really kind of, it made it very real. And I think for us, that was in and of itself a very defining moment that, these spirits that we're seeking out were once living people, and that we just have to make sure that we are always approaching this with deepest, utmost respect and being very clear when we go out there, and we're setting that intention and we are introducing ourselves to the location. We always have a very similar preamble that starts something like, "Hi, I'm T, this is Phil. We just want you to know we are here out of the utmost respect. We are storytellers and we want to tell your story." And that is how it goes. So we get our stuff set up, and a few times I thought I saw things moving out there, like shadows moving, in the brush, maybe animals, maybe not. But then T has his Flux 2 set up, and he's asking questions. And not long into the investigation, he's starting to get these, what are really seem to be direct responses, asking about the flight, asking about what happened there, asking about specific passengers. It was absolutely remarkable because we had taken that out a couple other times and we hadn't gotten anything off of it. So this was the first time this really, really started to perform. And the other noteworthy thing too was I had the spirit box out at one point. I was off on my own, and I was getting words that were coming through like plane, flight, pilot, captain. Again, which is, it could be coincidence. It could be what you're picking up on the radio frequency, but at the same time, it is just extremely compelling, because honestly, we've used the spirit box probably hundreds of times in many different locations, and I think this is the only time that I've gotten words that were very specific to flight and pilots and planes. So that was really fascinating. So the day is getting longer. It's the sun's starting to go down a little bit, and we decide, okay, it's time to head out. And this is when I posit the concept of, hey, why don't we come back at night? And T and Tina were not too hip to the idea, didn't necessarily think that was a great idea. And so T decides to ask the Flux 2 device, ask whatever's there to respond on that device. He asks, would it be okay if we came back at night? And immediately he established green for red, yes for no. And immediately red lights up the moment he asked that question. He said, would it be okay to come red immediately? And then he's like, okay. And he asks again a minute or so later, would it be safe for us to come back out at night? Red again. So now I have no memory of this, which is strange. But I start sweet talking a little bit, like, hey, we just want to like see what it's going to be like at night and see if it's going to be a different experience for us. And, we'll be respectful. And it was just going, no. And so we left and we're in the car. And I said, I really, really want to go back at night. And so eventually I bribed T with pizza and get him fed. And then he's feeling a little bit better about going back at night. So just he and I head back at night. Tina doesn't want to go back. She had her experience the previous night and just wasn't feeling like it was something that she wanted to do. So he and I head back out there. It's about a 20-30 minute drive. And we kind of drive up Mount Weather, pull onto the side of the road. And I want to make sure that he's comfortable doing this and that he's not just doing it to make me happy. And so I kill all the lights in the car and we're immediately plunged into darkness. It is pitch black. And I say, this is what it's going to be like out there. You're sure you're cool with this? But he was amped. I was amped. We were excited. Let's do it. Let's go. So we get our gear out of the car. We take the path back in. We're like feeling excited. We're chatting. And then we cross into the crash site and the energy is very different. It's just the air is very heavy, almost a sense of anticipation. But we're still feeling pretty good. Our banter kind of eases back a little bit, but we're still feeling good as we're setting up the gear, still feeling excited. And it wasn't until he says, is there anyone here who would like to communicate, that we felt the major shift. It went from feeling kind of heavy to just feeling outright like oppressive. It felt bad, honestly. And I don't like to put those qualifiers to these experiences, but it just felt a lot more negative than it had felt there during the day. And so we're asking questions, and the flux that had previously been very, very active was not going off at all now. We were getting nothing off of it. And so we said, well, maybe we're cramping the device a little bit. Maybe we should go stand on the other side. So we were kind of closer to where the road runs past the crash site. So we shifted around and we had our backs to the deeper woods, which was pretty heavy, which was pretty uncomfortable to have your back to all those trees. And so we asked, is there anyone here that would like to communicate? We asked us on the other side, and it went off green. As in, yes, we would like to communicate. That was the only time it ever went off, was when we asked that question. We start hearing strange sounds in the woods. I'm convinced that I'm hearing voices, and I just am feeling this building sense of dread that I have not felt on any other investigation. It was just getting more and more intense. And then T said to me, should we wrap up? And I said, no, let's keep going. And then I said to him, should we wrap up? He said, no, let's go a little bit longer. And then you can hear in our voices that we sound confused. We sound disoriented. We just sound out of sorts, and nothing like we had sounded earlier, nothing like how we had sounded during the day. And then he asks, I said, I think it's time to go. I said to T, I think it's time for us to go. Still hearing voices, heard something that sounded like a scream, could have been an animal, sounded very human to me at the time. And so he said, okay, I'm going to double down. I'm going to ask one more question. And he said, is it something along the lines of, is it safe for us to be here? And we sit there and we're watching the flux. It's pulsing. It's not no response. It pulses and pulses. And that silence we felt was answer enough, and we left.
Mhm.
And we were dead quiet in the car for the first like 15 minutes of the drive, and then we started to kind of relax a little bit more. But it was almost like there was something out there that hadn't been out there during the daytime, something that wanted us to stay, something that wanted to mess with us maybe.
Right.
It did not feel like the energy that we had been interacting with during the day. It was a much darker vibe. And I'll never forget those moments out there at night. It felt like we were out there I could have sworn we were out there for 45 minutes at least, or maybe half an hour. But we looked at the timestamp on our device and we had only been out there for 13 minutes. And that to
Whoa.
me seemed inexplicable, because I felt like it would have taken at least
Hmm.
10 minutes to set up our stuff. Right. So
Right.
there was a lot happening out there that I have yet to this day really be able to wrap my head
Fully
around. Yeah.
conclude. Did you guys have any conclusions from that experience? Have you theorized, like, what would have changed from day to night? Was there
So
something
we
extra?
Yeah, we think something extra. We think something
Yeah.
comes out at night, something maybe that was born from the tragedy, or maybe something older,
Huh.
because it's very old land. The Appalachians are very old mountains, and we think it was something tied to the land that was more
Mhm.
present at night, and that the spirits during the day were trying to warn us about,
Okay.
that you don't
Yeah.
want to go out and mess with this thing. So I think whatever was there did not feel necessary. I'm not going to throw out the D word, because I think that's not my thing, but I think it was something that was maybe a nature spirit, or something more, again, tied to the land, that was just
Okay.
more than we could manage.
Oh, man. We're there at the end, and, I just have, like, we have to kinda wrap up on this
Mhm.
end. I was gonna ask for a final story. I think that was perfect. That was
Thank
awesome,
you.
but
Thank you.
Alex, I left your comment up there because I didn't wanna lose it. So Alex says, "One day I'd like to try automatic writing on an investigation, see if anything happens." As a paranormal investigator, what are your thoughts on that?
I love automatic writing. We
Mhm.
have used that on our investigations. That has been
Oh,
T's thing. T has really kind of clicked with the automatic writing, and it's been fascinating to watch him do it, because he's definitely more of the skeptic. He's the Scully to my Mulder, and so to see him engage in the automatic writing has been phenomenal. We've had some very interesting things come through the automatic writing, and what we've started doing now is we will do a side by side Estes and automatic writing session,
oh.
which has yielded some pretty astounding results, where there is alignment between what he is writing and between
Mhm.
what is coming out through the spirit box. Because he'll put headphones on, he'll put the spirit box on, but just for white noise, to be able to catch him, or to be able to drown everything else out.
Right,
And
right.
I'll actually be listening to a separate spirit box cycling through, and we get a lot of corroboration, and it can be very interesting and very intense at times.
Oh man, that is so awesome. Folks, just final push here. Please do go check out Old Spirits. I always
Yes.
twist the two words. Old Spirits Investigations on YouTube. If you want to see kind of their style and what they're doing over there, it is so profesh. Trust me, you'll start watching, forget that you're watching like something on a computer, and be like, "This is a TV show."
Love it.
I hope you guys are planning or aiming for that one day. I
Yes,
would love to
that's
see
the I
that.
mean, that's the dream, we just wanna
Yeah,
keep doing what we're doing, we wanna keep improving what we're doing, we wanna keep growing as investigators, keep growing as content producers, and just keep
wonderful.
showing what an actual investigation looks like. We don't wanna
Yeah,
put the fluff there, we're not, trying to have jump scares or thrills, we wanna accurately portray what it's like for, two dads to go out and investigate.
mhm, absolutely. Yeah, because it's not all thrills and chills and
Nope.
ghosts, and it's sometimes it's just boring. You sitting for 8 hours. It just is what it is.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna do like a Michael, good. I'm glad you caught the notification finally. I'm so sorry you've been missing. I'll put the last call for like any last minute questions to the chat as we
Yes,
round out the end here. If
yes.
you guys have any last minute questions, put it in the chat. We'll see if we can get it answered before we end here. Race to the finish. Phil, what is next for Phil Rossi? Any exciting developments or projects?
What is next? So I am currently working on what I'm calling my paranormal memoir. I'm
Ooh.
working on a book called Don't Turn Around, which is about my experience with the paranormal, my experience as a podcaster, an investigator, an experiencer, and how my life journey is sort of interwoven into that. And I'm excited about that. I'm almost done with the first draft. I'm hoping to shop it around to publishers and see if I can't get it on some kind of an imprint to help me get it distributed. But if not, I would certainly look into independent publishing, and I do plan on podcasting some of the chapters as well.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I would ask you to keep me posted, but you don't have to do that. I'll try to keep an eye out on
Yes, no,
social
I'll
media
keep
when
you
that's
posted.
ready.
I will.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And that's going to be your next publication,
That's the
you
goal.
think?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Do it, man. Same, Alex. Same, but we love doing it. It's fun.
Yes, we do. It's like fishing, right? It's like fishing.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
and I will say one thing about investigating is you get in a different headspace. It's almost meditative where
Mhm.
things just kind of slow down. And I love that about investigating. I love the peace that I find in between the moments of things happening. I
Yeah.
find it's such an opportunity just to be present in a way that you don't normally get to be present in your day-to-day life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah, because when you're investigating, that's all you should be doing.
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
those outside influences,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It is very peaceful. It is like meditation. All right. Where would you like to send folks to follow you online, catch the show, or pick up copies of your books if they're
So
interested?
I think one of the best places to keep up with what I'm doing is on my Instagram. That's my primary social media, and that's at Don't Turn Around Podcast. And then also philrossimediastudios.com is sort of the hub for everything that I'm doing.
Can they also email you too?
Absolutely. That's dtapodcastinfo@gmail.com.
Those are the only two I
That's
had
amazing.
prepared
No,
for
that's
you.
perfect. I love it. I love it. You're right on it.
I'm trying, man. All right. All right. If that is all the places you want to send folks, then
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
go ahead and shut this down. So help me in this episode. Would you
Yes.
like to leave my audience with any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or a piece of
Abs-
advice?
I would love to. So if you're investigator, if you're thinking of going out and investigating, what I like to tell people is that you can have all the gadgets in the world out there, but the most important piece of equipment that you have is yourself, is your body, is your senses. And so be present, listen to what your body is telling you, and just really tune into the moment, because this is valuable, and this is the most important part of any investigative arsenal that you might have.
Love that. Awesome. Author, investigator, and host of Don't Turn Around, Phil Rossi. Thank you so much for joining me, Phil. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. I had a blast.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm going to stick you backstage if you don't mind just hanging out for
Not at
a
all.
second, and we
Not
will
at
catch
all.
up on the back end, okay?
Okay, beautiful.
All right, awesome. Oh man, what a fabulous conversation. What a fabulous gent. What a cool dude. I hope you agree. I know you agree. Let me stick his contact up just one more time. If you're on Instagram, please give him a follow. Don't Turn Around Podcast at Don't Turn Around Podcast. And if you have any other questions or thoughts that you wanted to get to Phil and couldn't fit him in tonight, that's okay. You can just email him. Easy peasy. DTA podcastinfo@gmail.com. Or you can hit any of the additional links to contact him that I've put down in the show notes. I did have more, just couldn't get them up there in time for you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This was so awesome. I had such a blast. I am going to head backstage and maybe have just a very quick additional spooky chat with Phil. If you are curious as to what we are talking about back there behind closed doors, paranormgirlpod@gmail.com. That is where I put all of my backstage guest chats. and any extra content that my brain concocts and my schedule allows for, which isn't always the case, but when it is, then that's what I do. Join Patreon. You get a shout out on the show. Of course, backstage guest chats, early access to episodes, and my undying gratitude and appreciation. So there is that. You can also support the show by following at paranormgirlpod@gmail.com or leaving a 5-star rating, a review wherever you're listening, or thumbs up on this video right now before you leave. And very quickly, I'm going to rush through these. Just a couple of brief announcements. So first announcement I got for you, Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen, the only other place on YouTube that you can find me live regularly, is launching a brand new segment. It is called Paranormal Happy Hour. And this show is going to be much more laid back, very quick content. It's going to be more frequent throughout the month, and you will get notifications of when those episodes are airing by following us on social, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And we're just going to talk about, paranormal news, hot topics, hot takes, muffin recipes. It's a whole thing. It's going to be awesome. So be sure you're following at Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen on social. Second one is B3's regular episode is coming up. The date has changed a little bit, so I wanted to get that in here. We are going to stream live Tuesday, August 5th, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. It's different time, different day. Don't let that mess you up. It's the same stuff, same spooky banner, drink recommendations, listener call-ins, all of that fun stuff. Topic is going to be sleep paralysis and its demons. So if you've got a spooky story to share, if you have ever fallen asleep on your back, give us a call. You know what I'm talking about. Come on, you guys. All right. Again, August 5th, 8 p.m. Central. Final announcement. PGP is coming to a close on this current season. Our look at ghosts and hauntings, we're rounding the corner to the conclusion. So with that said, endings bring new beginnings. And unfortunately, next season's topic is hanging in the balance right now because I'm waiting for you guys. Well, I have to post the poll first for you to vote on next season's topic. Yes, you guys get to decide. So I just want to remind you, follow on social at Paranorm Girl Pod, social wide, and keep an eye out for a poll or a survey or however we're going to do those votes. It is coming up soon. Okay, I got to rush. Okay, no, that's it for announcements. That is it. That's going to wrap the show. I really appreciate you guys. You guys be good out there. Who am I kidding? You're always good. You're always good. You're the best. But I will see you back here next time. Until then, stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.